Welcome to another Blender tutorial. Today I show you how to create this logo animation here using Blender. You will see all of the stages of the creation process. We will talk about modeling, animation, lighting and compositing. The whole animation is based on a computer animation that was created around 1985 for one of the German television channels. And the link to the original animation can be found in the description to this YouTube video. But let me show you the rendered animation first before we start with the tutorial. Now I would like to highlight just a few points on how to create this logo animation, and you will find the detailed hands-on tutorials in separate videos in this playlist. What is special about the animation? When doing the animation, many people would probably be tempted to create a 3D path and then move the camera along that path, like shown in this little picture here. So you could start, for example, to locate the camera here on the end of the path and then move the camera along that path and then finally away from the sphere for the final shot. I actually used a slightly different approach. I kept the camera stable, so I didn't move it, I kept it in one location, and instead I moved the 3D logo towards the camera and to the camera position, and I also rotated it along its local axis. And if you check the original video, as I said, the link is in the description to this YouTube video here. I think this is exactly the approach they used in the original animation from 1985. The pictograms of the different broadcasting companies that are shown here, we have 3 different pictograms. This object here was actually attached to the local camera, and that makes sure that whenever you move the local camera, all of these objects will move with it, including all of the lights which are used to light these objects. Finally, what you have probably noticed in the end, you will see this 3D logo here in the end, but it doesn't look exactly like this logo here. So it's not really a perspective view on the logo, but it's more like an orthographic view on the logo. So it almost looks like this. To achieve this effect, I basically changed the focal length of the camera. I animated the focal length from 35 millimeters and changed it to 100 millimeters for the final shot here. And at the same time, I moved and animated the camera and moved it away from this 3D logo. So 2 different effects, changing the focal length and also changing the location of the 3D camera. What is special about the modeling of the objects for this animation? The pictograms of the broadcasting companies are created with multiple approaches. In some cases, I used Bezier curves to create certain types of fonts, like this one here. I also used a different approach for some of the pictograms, like this monitoring symbol here, where I used a mesh object in combination with subdivision surface modifier. And then for some other fonts, I used the predefined systems fonts, which are available in the Windows operating system. Then on the back side of this logo, there was this vector map here, which was created with a manual approach. I used a reference image for to model this simple point and click approach, which I will show in the tutorial. Then we had this 3D logo here that was based on a sphere, and I used the knife tool to cut out certain sections from that sphere. Alternatively, you could also use a Boolean modifier to remove some sections of the sphere. And for the 3D text here in the foreground, I used again some of the system fonts available in the Windows operating system. And for the background, I actually used a rectangle in combination with a texture map of type blend. And this rectangle was then animated and stretched throughout the animation along the y-axis. What is special about lighting the objects? Well, one thing you probably notice is that the surface of this 3D logo here becomes much brighter when you look at the horizon than in the foreground. I tried different approaches to achieve this effect. I added additional local lamps, but none of this really worked. So finally, I decided to use a special type of map to brighten up the portions here which are more close to the edge of this 3D logo. So this was a textured map of type blend, and I influenced the emit factor here with this texture. Another thing that was special here, I used local lights for the different groups of objects. For example, I used a separate layer for the pictograms here in the foreground with their own local lamps on this layer, and the same for the 3D logo. Here I used another layer with its own set of local lamps, so I kept the illumination and the lamps separate from each other for the different type of objects. I already talked about the almost orthographic view of the 3D logo at the end of the animation, as you can see here. As explained, to achieve this, I changed the focal length of the camera from 35 to 100 millimeter. This is basically a camera zoom into the picture. And at the same time, I moved the camera away from the 3D logo, and these two effects caused this change from a perspective to an orthographic view of the logo. And of course, this had some side effects on the other objects in the picture. For example, that caused a movement in the background of this background rectangle here. And to solve this problem, I decided to render both objects separately. That means I rendered this logo image separately from the rest on a transparent background. And then I merged these two renderings together using the video editor in Blender, as you can see here. And I also added some other tracks here for the sound and so forth. So I hope very much that you liked this little overview tutorial. Some final remarks. Before you start with the detailed tutorials, I would highly recommend that you really try out different approaches yourself, how you would approach modeling, animation and so forth before you go into the tutorials, because this is probably the best way to learn it. If you have alternative approaches that are interesting, please leave a comment to this video. And if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. And you will find the detailed links to the detailed tutorials in the video description. Thanks for watching.